The emergency line, 911, is a sacred connection for people in genuine peril. But it's also a direct, unfiltered pipeline to the glorious chaos of the human mind. For every legitimate crisis, there's a call about a suspicious sunflower or a malevolent kitchen appliance. Today, we're not just listing facts. We're saluting the dispatchers who heard it all and didn't immediately quit their jobs. 1. Let's kick things off with a chilling tale of domestic paranoia. A call came in from a woman on the verge of a domestic appliance crisis. Her arch nemesis? The ice maker in her freezer. Apparently, it had gone rogue, churning out ice cubes at a rate she deemed aggressive and unnecessary. She wasn't just annoyed, she was deeply suspicious. She insisted the machine was, and I quote, planning something. A hostile takeover of the kitchen, perhaps? An icy coup d'etat? When police finally arrived to de-escalate the situation, they found the terrifying mastermind behind this frozen plot. A single button labeled Fast Ice. It really makes you wonder what kind of sinister agenda her blender is hiding. 2. Neighborhood disputes. Usually it's about loud music or property lines. But for one woman, the threat was floral. She dialed 911 to report her neighbor's sunflowers. Her complaint wasn't that they were dying or unsightly. It was that they were too tall and almost certainly peeking into her backyard. In her mind, these weren't just innocent plants, but highly trained, yellow-petaled spies gathering intel. Police were asked to intervene in what might be the world's first case of botanical espionage. While they didn't stake out the sunflowers, they did give the neighbor a heads up. The next morning, every single sunflower was sporting a tiny pair of sunglasses. A passive-aggressive masterpiece? Or a silent admission that yes, the sunflowers are on a mission? 3. A frantic 911 call reported a mysterious pink object that had crash-landed in a front yard. The caller described it as unnervingly out of place, which, to be fair, is an understatement for a potential UFO. Officers raced to the scene, prepared for a close encounter of the weird kind. They arrived to find the alien threat, a sad, deflated plastic flamingo pool float, likely a victim of a strong gust of wind. But this homeowner was not about to be fooled by a simple case of weather. He eyed the pink casualty suspiciously and whispered to the officer, "That's how they test you. They start with innocent-looking pool toys and then, boom, surveillance." Right, we've been warned. The first wave of the invasion will be led by an army of inflatable flamingos. 4. Nothing strikes fear into the heart of modern man quite like technology that refuses to turn off. A man called 911 in a state of pure terror because his electric toothbrush had become possessed. "I took the batteries out, and it's still vibrating," he stammered, convinced he was holding some cursed dental wand. You can just picture the officers drawing straws for who had to handle the rogue toothbrush. A brave cop stepped forward, cautiously took the buzzing device from the man's trembling hand, and it immediately fell silent. Stunned, the homeowner asked, "How did you do that?" The officer, channeling the wisdom of 1,000 bizarre calls, simply replied, "Cop magic. Some days you get the bad guys, some days you exercise hygiene products." 5. The award for most technologically illiterate ghost story goes to this woman. She called 911 late at night, whispering that there were ghostly voices in her bedroom. "It said my name," she insisted, completely terrified. Police arrived, probably expecting to find a drafty window or a creaky floorboard. Instead, their investigation led them to her Bluetooth speaker. It was still connected to a podcast she'd been listening to earlier that day. The dispatcher, putting the pieces together, asked what the podcast was about. "True crime stories," she replied. After a beat of profound silence, the officer on scene just said, "Well, there you go. Maybe stick to podcasts about gardening from now on." 6. In our high-tech world, you can't be too careful. Every Ring doorbell is watching. Every Alexa is listening. One man took this vigilance to its logical extreme by reporting his neighbor's mailbox as a potential threat to national security. His reasoning? It looked too futuristic. He was convinced it was a disguised surveillance hub, likely run by a shadowy organization. Police were dispatched to investigate this techno-espionage. They found a standard mailbox with a small, solar-powered light on top. That was it. When they informed the neighbor, he just sighed and said, "Last week he was suspicious of my garden gnome." To be fair, some of those gnomes do have a very shifty look in their painted eyes. 7. Every great detective has a unique sense of smell. For Sherlock, it was tobacco ash. For this woman, it was burnt popcorn. She called 911, certain that an intruder had broken into her home. The evidence was irrefutable. "My kitchen smells like burnt popcorn," she stated gravely, "and I don't even own popcorn." The perfect crime. Officers arrived at the scene, which was not so much a crime scene as just a kitchen. Their top-tier investigation quickly uncovered a popcorn bag in the trash. The culprit? Her teenage son, who admitted to a late-night snack. Undeterred, the mother declared, "I knew I smelled crime." Yeah, the great popcorn heist of 2024. A true masterclass in criminal stupidity. 8. A terrified woman called the police about strange, unexplainable noises coming from her attic. It's the classic start to every horror movie, so you can't blame her for panicking. She was imagining burglars, raccoons, or worse, ghosts. Officers arrived and conducted a thorough and probably very creepy search of the attic. They didn't find a ghoul or a criminal, but they did find a small Bluetooth speaker. It turns out her son, a diabolical mastermind of minor inconveniences, had been streaming spooky sounds from his phone as a prank. Upon hearing the truth, the mother's fear instantly turned to rage. She calmly informed the officers, "I'm grounding him until college." That kid played a stupid game and won a very stupid, very long prize. 9. Some emergency calls are about life or death situations. Others are about the potential birth of sentient artificial intelligence inside a laundry room appliance. A man called 911, his voice trembling, to report a strange noise from his washing machine. It wasn't grinding or clanking, it was humming, and not just any hum. "The tune sounds familiar," he insisted. When the dispatcher calmly suggested it might be a simple mechanical vibration, the man shot back, "No, it's humming the Jeopardy theme." While officers were not dispatched to interrogate the appliance, the dispatcher later admitted that when she listened to the man's recording, she could almost hear the faint melody of the final Jeopardy music. A terrifying coincidence? Or the first sign that our washing machines are getting smarter than we are? 10. The art of lawn mowing is, for most, a simple chore. For one caller, it was an act of psychological warfare. He reported his neighbor for mowing the lawn in a suspiciously aggressive manner, but the true emergency was the pattern. "He's cutting the grass in zigzags," the caller whispered urgently. "That's not just messy, it's a code. He's trying to tell me something, like a threat." The dispatcher, trying to de-escalate, asked what he thought the message could be. The caller replied without hesitation, "It's obviously a snake pattern. He's calling me a snake, to the whole neighborhood. I want him arrested for slander by lawnmower." 11. We all have our limits, and for one man, that limit was the sheer, unadulterated joy of his neighbor. He actually called the police to ask if he could report his neighbor for grilling with too much enthusiasm. When the dispatcher, likely baffled, asked for clarification, he complained, "He's flipping those burgers like he's on a TV cooking show. It's just a lot. Theatrics. It's annoying." Imagine being so bothered by someone else's happiness that you try to involve the legal system. You can just picture the police report, cited for excessive spatula flamboyance and demonstrating a flagrant disregard for grilling mediocrity. Some people just want to watch the world burn. Their burgers, that is. Quietly and without any flair. 12. In the cutthroat world of suburban landscaping, a perfect lawn isn't a source of pride. It's probable cause. One woman reported her neighbor's front yard as suspiciously perfect. She told the dispatcher, "It's too green, unnaturally green. It practically glows." Officers were dispatched to investigate this potential horticultural crime scene. They found a beautiful, well-watered, and meticulously trimmed lawn. The owner, a friendly retiree, simply explained he loved gardening. When officers relayed this perfectly reasonable explanation to the caller, she scoffed. "Yeah, right," she said. "No one actually enjoys gardening that much. He's obviously hiding something under all that perfect grass." If a great lawn is a crime, half of suburban America is doing hard time. 13. A woman dialed 911, her voice trembling with the gravity of someone witnessing a psychological unraveling. The patient, her dog. The crisis, an existential tail-chasing loop. "He's obsessed," she whispered into the phone. "It's not just playing anymore. He looks at his tail with such fury, like it personally wronged him." She was essentially asking for a canine psychiatric intervention team. The dispatcher, after a moment of what must have been profound silence, offered a revolutionary therapeutic approach. "Ma'am, have you considered taking him for more walks?" The woman gasped. "You mean the cure for this deep-seated psychological torment is fresh air and exercise?" "Yes. Sometimes the most complex problems have the simplest solutions." 14. The game of Monopoly has destroyed friendships and torn families apart for decades, but rarely does it escalate to involving law enforcement. One man, in the heat of a game, called 911 because his own daughter had landed on his fully developed property and was refusing to pay the exorbitant rent. "She's breaking the rules," he insisted to the dispatcher. "It's fraud. I demand justice." The dispatcher had to calmly explain that board game disputes are slightly outside their jurisdiction. Undeterred, the man pleaded, "Well, can you at least just get on the phone and tell her she owes me $1,200? Sorry, pal. In the ruthless world of real estate board games, you're on your own." 15. A culinary disaster of epic proportions prompted one woman to call 911 in a full-blown panic. "My pancakes are on fire," she yelled into the phone. "I tried everything. I put water on them, but they just burned completely black." The dispatcher, trying to assess the situation, asked a simple question. "Ma'am, what temperature did you have the burner set to?" There was a moment of confused silence. Then the woman asked, with what sounded like genuine astonishment, "Wait, you can adjust the temperature?" When the dispatcher gently suggested turning the heat down from maximum inferno next time, the woman gasped, "Nobody told me stoves were that complicated." Some lessons are learned the hard way. Those pancakes made the ultimate sacrifice for her education. 16. This next call isn't just about a technology failure. It's about a technology failure with bad taste. A man called 911 because his Bluetooth speaker refused to disconnect from his phone. But that wasn't the real emergency. "It keeps playing the wrong playlist," he complained, as if the device was personally insulting his musical sensibilities. "Can you send the cops to make it stop?" He didn't want technical support. He wanted a tactical intervention against a rogue device forcing him to listen to music he hated. The dispatcher, skipping the SWAT team, gently explained how to turn off the Bluetooth function on his phone. A long silence followed. Then the man sheepishly muttered, "Yeah, I probably should have tried that first." "You think?" 17. Some household noises are merely annoying. A dripping faucet, a creaky floorboard. And then there are noises that apparently signal a portal to hell opening up in your bathroom. A man frantically dialed emergency services to report his toilet was making a demonic growling sound. He was fully prepared for an exorcism. When officers arrived, they diagnosed the problem not as a fiend from the underworld, but as air trapped in the pipes. A common plumbing issue. Visibly relieved but still cautious, the caller asked, "So, no demon?" The officer, probably wanting to get back to his coffee, replied, "Probably not." The man's face fell. "Probably," he repeated, now more unsettled than before. That's not the kind of reassurance you want when you suspect your porcelain throne is a gateway to damnation. 18. When your microwave starts acting up, you might think it's a technical glitch. Or if you're this woman, you assume it's haunted. She called 911 because her microwave kept turning on by itself, a clear sign it was possessed, likely by the spirit of a past owner, who apparently had unfinished business with reheating leftovers. Police arrived, not with holy water, but with a basic understanding of electronics. They quickly identified a faulty power button. Case closed. But the woman wasn't convinced. She pondered, eyeing the appliance with deep mistrust. Then explained the weird beep it made last night. Some people just really want to live in a horror movie, even if it's a low-budget one starring a haunted Kenmore. 19. We've all had that heart-stopping moment of dropping a phone, but dropping it directly into a simmering pot of soup takes it to a new level of disaster. One woman, in a state of culinary and technological crisis, called 911 in tears. Her plea wasn't for the fire department, but for tech support. "Can the police help me get my contacts back?" she sobbed into the phone. The dispatcher, instead of laughing, offered a classic piece of advice. "Put the phone in a bag of uncooked rice." The woman was incredulous. "Rice? Really? The police know that trick?" "Yes, ma'am. In today's world, our brave officers are trained in pursuit, takedowns, and basic electronic first aid. It's a versatile job." 20. Some people are bothered by loud neighbors or barking dogs. This man's nemesis was a celestial body. He dialed 911 because the moonlight was shining directly into his bedroom, and he was taking it personally. "I've closed the blinds," he explained, his voice full of paranoia. "But the moon just keeps following me. I feel targeted." He sounded less like a sleepy resident and more like the protagonist in a cosmic thriller. The dispatcher, maintaining professional composure, suggested heavier curtains. The man paused for a long moment, considering this strategy, before replying, "I guess. But it feels like giving the moon what it wants." He was in a silent war with a giant rock 238,000 miles away, and he wasn't about to surrender. 21. You expect your dog to stare at you, maybe your cat. But your goldfish? That's suspicious. A woman dialed 911 because her pet goldfish was staring at her with an intensity she found deeply unsettling. "It knows too much," she whispered to the dispatcher, convinced this tiny gilled creature was harboring dark secrets. Officers, likely unsure what to write in their report, suggested simply repositioning the fish tank so she wouldn't be in its direct line of sight. The woman hesitated, her paranoia kicking into high gear. She whispered back, "Yeah. But what if it just swims to the other side to keep watching?" She had officially been outsmarted by an animal with a 3-second memory. 22. Toddlers are agents of chaos, capable of destruction on a scale that defies physics. One mother discovered this when her child managed to stuff an entire serving of spaghetti into their DVD player. In a moment of sheer desperation, she called 911. Her logic? "I just thought maybe officers had special extraction tools for this kind of thing." As if every police cruiser comes standard with a pasta retrieval kit. The dispatcher, holding back what must have been immense laughter, calmly recommended using a pair of tweezers. A simple solution for a problem that was, to be fair, anything but simple. No word on whether the DVD of Lady and the Tramp survived. 23. A man called emergency services in a panic after witnessing something truly unnatural in his backyard. A moving bush. He was certain he was seeing a new ambulatory form of plant life and wanted it investigated immediately. Officers arrived to find the situation was slightly less paranormal. His neighbor's beagle had gotten itself hopelessly tangled in a hedge while chasing a squirrel, and its frantic wiggling was causing the entire bush to shake. But the caller wasn't buying it. Even after the dog was freed, he shook his head and said, "That dog's playing dumb. Bushes don't just move like that." He went to bed that night believing in two things: mobile shrubbery and highly deceptive canines. 24. Nothing gets the adrenaline pumping like seeing a shadowy figure lurking just outside your window at night. A caller, heart-pounding, reported a suspicious figure standing motionless in their yard. Officers responded quickly, expecting the worst. They arrived, flashlights sweeping the property, and found the intruder, a life-size cardboard cutout of a famous movie character. The officer shone his light on the homeowner, who blinked, and then had a moment of sudden realization. "Oh yeah," he said, a wave of embarrassment washing over him. "I forgot I put that there for Halloween." I guess the prank was a success, even if the only person he managed to scare was himself. 25. In the world of high-stakes thrillers, a ticking sound in a car can only mean one thing: a bomb. For one woman, this cinematic trope became a terrifying reality. She heard a faint but steady ticking sound coming from somewhere inside her vehicle and immediately called 911, fearing the worst. Police rushed to the scene, likely clearing the area and preparing for a delicate operation. After a tense search, the explosive device was located. It was a small plastic travel alarm clock that had fallen under the seat, still dutifully ticking away, completely unaware of the chaos it had caused. Next time you think your car is rigged to explode, Maybe check under the seats for any forgotten luggage from your last vacation first. 26. Some people like their tea brewed with a gentle, soothing whistle. This man, however, felt his new electric kettle was boiling water with the fury of 1,000 suns. He called 911 because the appliance sounded too aggressive for his liking. "I don't trust it," he told the dispatcher, his voice filled with genuine concern. "It whistles like it's angry at the water." He was convinced the kettle had some kind of personal vendetta. The police, not wanting to get involved in a domestic dispute between a man and his kitchenware, simply recommended he switch brands. The man was audibly relieved. "Yeah, I knew it had bad vibes. Some appliances just aren't a good fit." 27. A single shoe can mean many things. A sign of a wild party, a lost item, or, if you're this caller, a sinister message from the criminal underworld. A man called 911, his voice tight with anxiety. "There's a single shoe on my front porch," he reported. "I don't recognize it. It wasn't there yesterday." The dispatcher, trying to understand the threat, asked, "Sir, are you saying someone left a shoe as a threat?" The man was certain. "Exactly. It's a message, a warning." Officers arrived to find the intimidating object, a tiny pink toddler's shoe, likely kicked off during a neighbor's stroller walk. But even with this evidence, the man wasn't convinced. "Or maybe," he whispered to the officer, "that's just what they want you to think." 28. Some people worry about burglars. This man worried about thermal anomalies in his bathroom. He called the police to report that his toilet seat was cold and insisted on a full investigation into potential tampering. "It was comfortably warm yesterday," he explained, laying out his case like a seasoned detective. "Now it's cold. Freezing even. This is not a coincidence. This is a targeted act." The responding officer arrived, conducted a thorough visual inspection of the non-threatening toilet, and delivered his expert conclusion with a deadpan face. The primary suspect was the recent drop in outdoor temperature. The caller was launching a forensic investigation into thermodynamics, and the police had to be the ones to break the case. 29. There are certain universal truths. Don't tug on Superman's cape, don't spit into the wind, and do not, under any circumstances, put metal in a microwave. One caller learned this lesson the hard way and immediately demanded official intervention. They called 911 after accidentally microwaving a metal spoon. "It sparked!" they exclaimed, clearly shaken. "Shouldn't someone come check for radiation?" The dispatcher then had the unenviable task of explaining the fundamental difference between a kitchen appliance that heats food with radio waves and a full-blown nuclear reactor. Despite the science lesson, the caller remained skeptical and insisted on getting a second opinion. Because you can never be too sure about radioactive spoons. 30. A man's serene afternoon on his balcony was interrupted by a feathered menace, prompting a call to the police. The perpetrator? A single pigeon. "It landed an hour ago," he explained, his voice low and tense, "and it's just staring at me, judging me." The dispatcher tried to reassure him that pigeons are harmless. "Not this one," the caller retorted. "This one's got cold, dead eyes. It looks like it's here to collect a debt." When advised to shoo it away, the man sighed in defeat. "I tried. I waved my newspaper. It just puffed out its chest. I think this is his balcony now." 31. We all have days where we feel like we're missing something. Keys, wallet, a sense of purpose. But one woman called the police to report that she was missing something far more fundamental, her own shadow. "I usually see it on the sidewalk when I walk," she explained, utterly bewildered. "But today, nothing. It's gone." The responding officers had to gently break the news that it wasn't a case of supernatural theft, but simply a very overcast, cloudy day. "Okay," she said, still sounding deeply unconvinced. "But if it shows up somewhere weird, like in someone else's yard, I'm calling back." She was ready to file a missing persons report for her own silhouette. 32. The struggle is real. We've all been there, battling a stubborn pickle jar that refuses to yield its delicious, briny contents. For one woman, this common kitchen frustration became a matter for law enforcement. She dialed 911 because she simply could not open her pickle jar. "I've tried hot water, tapping it on the counter. I've even tried yelling at it," she lamented, completely out of options. The dispatcher, ever helpful, suggested asking a neighbor for assistance. The woman's response was immediate and firm. "I would rather call the police," she stated, then admit defeat to her. The neighborhood rivalry was apparently more intense than her craving for pickles. 33. The line between the paranormal and the mundane can be very thin, especially when viewed through a kitchen window at dusk. A woman called 911 to report seeing a floating figure hovering ominously in her backyard. She described it as pale, ghostly, and silent. Officers arrived, ready for anything, and began a search of the property. The source of the spectral sighting was quickly located: a simple plastic grocery bag, caught on a tree branch, dancing in the gentle breeze. Case closed, right? Not for the caller. She remained utterly skeptical. "That was no bag," she insisted, shaking her head. "It was hovering with intent. Some people see a piece of litter, others see a malevolent spirit. It's all about perspective." 34. Driving on a clear day can be a relaxing experience, unless you believe you're being personally stalked by the weather. One woman called 911 because she was absolutely certain a specific, mysterious cloud was following her car. The dispatcher patiently explained the optical illusion of parallax, how stationary objects at a great distance, like clouds, can appear to move along with you as you drive. The woman listened to this logical, scientific explanation, paused for a moment, and then replied with unshakable conviction, "Yeah, I get that. But this one's definitely spying on me." You have to admire her commitment to the idea that even Mother Nature is out to get her. 35. We live in an age of constant software updates, each one promising to make our lives easier while secretly plotting to make us feel stupid. One woman fell victim to this technological treachery and called 911 because she couldn't figure out how to unlock her phone after a recent update. "I'm using the same password as before and it just won't open," she said, her voice a mix of frustration and panic. The dispatcher, acting as impromptu IT support, asked if she was absolutely certain she had typed it correctly. A long, telling silence followed before the woman sheepishly replied, "Oh, oops, caps lock was on." Another case solved by the brave men and women of the Emergency Services Tech Department. 36. To the untrained ear, it was just a dog barking. But to one vigilant citizen, it was a clear and present danger. A caller demanded police assistance because their neighbor's dog was barking in a manner they found highly suspicious. The problem wasn't the volume, but the cadence. It barked exactly 5 times, paused, then barked 5 times again, they explained. It's clearly sending a secret message in Morse code. The dispatcher suggested the dog might just be barking at a squirrel. The caller considered this for a second, then shot back, "Or maybe it's a spy squirrel, and the dog is trying to warn us." The conspiracy goes deeper than we ever imagined. 37. In an era where we expect technology to be flawless, any glitch can feel like a personal betrayal. One caller contacted emergency services because their phone's fingerprint scanner had suddenly ceased to function. They weren't just annoyed, they were genuinely curious if the police possessed some kind of secret, government-level override. "I was wondering if you guys have, like, a master key or some magic cop technology to get in," they asked. They envisioned a secret police division dedicated to fixing faulty biometrics. The dispatcher had to gently inform them that the police force's Special Operations Tech Division mostly consists of telling people to try turning it off and on again. 38. The air fryer. A modern marvel that promises crispy food with less oil. But for one man, it was a source of deep-seated suspicion and fear. He dialed 911 because his new air fryer was making a low humming noise while it was plugged in. "It sounds suspicious," he told the dispatcher, his voice hushed. "Like a bomb, or maybe a robot that's plotting something." He was picturing a Decepticon in his kitchen, masquerading as a convenient appliance. Officers, foregoing a full-scale bomb squad deployment, gave him a revolutionary piece of advice. Try unplugging it when he wasn't using it. A simple solution for what he believed was the beginning of the robot uprising. 39. A man, convinced he was witnessing a desperate plea for help, called 911. The source of the distress signal? His oven. He was certain the light inside was blinking in a specific, intelligent pattern. "It's SOS, I'm sure of it," he insisted to the dispatcher, ready to launch a rescue mission for his Kenmore. A technician was later called to the scene, not of a crime, but of a simple appliance malfunction. The verdict? The oven light bulb was just old and dying, causing it to flicker. The homeowner, however, saw it differently. With a knowing, ominous tone, he said, "Or maybe the SOS worked, and you're the rescuer." The oven, he believed, had been saved. 40. There are few things more sacred than the morning coffee ritual, so when that ritual is disturbed, it can feel like a personal attack. A man called emergency services to complain that his coffee tasted unusually strong that morning, and he seemed to suspect foul play. The dispatcher, playing detective, asked a crucial question. "Sir, how many scoops of coffee grounds did you use?" The man was audibly puzzled. "Wait, you mean I control the strength?" he asked, his voice filled with a sense of wonder and disbelief. "All these years, I thought the machine just did its own thing." He had been living in a world where coffee makers were sentient baristas with their own mysterious whims. That morning, his world was changed forever. 41. We've saved one of the most classic childhood fears for last, but this time, it was coming from a full-grown adult. A man dialed 911, his voice a terrified whisper. "Please send someone right away," he pleaded. "There's a monster under my bed." The dispatcher, maintaining professional calm, tried to clarify. "An animal, sir? A raccoon, perhaps?" The man's voice cracked with pure fear. "No, a monster. I can hear it breathing." Officers arrived at the scene, likely unsure if they needed a tranquilizer gun or an exorcist. They cautiously entered the bedroom and found the source of the terrifying sounds. The man's 5-year-old son, hiding under the bed with a walkie-talkie, making spooky noises. The kid giggled. The dad just rubbed his temples and said, "You're grounded until college." And honestly, seems fair. 42. Some people see a balloon and think of a party. Others see it and think of an imminent aerial assault. A woman called emergency services after spotting a single balloon floating ominously toward her house. "It's definitely a government weather balloon," she said, with the confidence of a seasoned intelligence analyst. "Or maybe a spy drone. It knows I'm here." Officers arrived to investigate the airborne threat and found a lone helium balloon, likely an escapee from a nearby kid's birthday party, tangled harmlessly in a tree. But the woman wasn't satisfied with this simple explanation. "But why?" she asked, looking from the officers to the balloon. "Was it coming straight for me?" 43. It's a sound that has driven countless people mad in horror stories. The loud, incessant ticking of a clock. For one woman, this wasn't just annoying, it was a coded message. She called 911 in terror, saying her grandfather clock was ticking too loudly. "It's not just ticking," she insisted. "It's tapping in code. It's trying to tell me something." Police arrived and, after a brief but intense investigation, discovered the clock's battery was simply dying, causing the second hand to stutter and make a louder, irregular noise. When they explained this to her, she just nodded slowly. "Sure," she said, eyeing the clock with deep suspicion. "That's what they want you to believe." 44. The eternal war between gardeners and neighborhood cats reached a new level when one man decided to bring in legal enforcement. He called the police to demand they arrest his neighbor's cat for trespassing. "It just walks through my prize-winning tulips like it owns the place," he fumed. The dispatcher, probably stifling a laugh, told him to try putting up a fence. The caller scoffed at such a naive solution. "That cat would just jump over it," he replied with a mix of anger and awe. "It's criminally athletic." You can't just imprison a feline felon with that kind of raw talent. It requires a maximum security garden. 45. A panicked caller reported a terrifying home invasion, but the intruder was unusually reflective. They claimed their bathroom mirror was watching them. Officers arrived, likely preparing for a complex situation involving hidden cameras or a two-way mirror. Instead, they found a standard, off-the-shelf bathroom mirror, simply doing its job. "Yeah, but it watches everything I do in here," the homeowner insisted, pointing a trembling finger at their own reflection. The officer had to pause, realizing he was about to explain the fundamental physics of light to a terrified adult. Sir, he said slowly, that's its entire purpose. It's not surveillance, it's science. Some days you fight crime, other days you debunk sentient home decor. 46. Most of us take our shadows for granted. It's just there, doing its shadow thing. But for one man, his own shadow had become a stalker. He called 911 on a bright, sunny day to report that his shadow was following him too closely. It doesn't feel normal, he explained with genuine anxiety. It's right there, step for step with me. It's too close. You can just imagine the dispatcher on the other end, desperately trying to find a polite way to explain how sunlight works to a grown man without just yelling, "That's how shadows work," into the phone. Some days the job is about more than just emergencies. It's about remedial science lessons. 47. It was a daring escape, a bid for freedom that could only happen in the 21st century. A woman called 911 because her robot vacuum had gone rogue, escaping the house through an open door and beginning a slow, determined journey down the sidewalk. "It's heading toward the neighbor's yard," she said in a panicked voice. "What if it causes damage? What if it sucks up their prize-winning roses?" The dispatcher suggested she simply block its path with a broom. The woman hesitated, then whispered, "I can't. I think it senses me." The rogue agent was eventually apprehended, thankfully without any casualties or property damage. 48. A frantic call came in about a shadowy figure lurking menacingly in a backyard. The caller was convinced they were being watched by an intruder. Officers rushed to the scene, flashlights ready, preparing for a confrontation. They swept the yard and found the terrifying figure, a lawn chair that had been knocked over by the wind. The caller refused to believe it. "That's impossible," they said. "I was watching it. It definitely moved on its own." The officer calmly gave the chair a little nudge with his foot. "Yep," he said. "Moves when the wind blows." The caller was silent for a moment, then concluded, "That wind is up to something." 49. And finally, we arrive at the absolute peak of suburban paranoia, a threat that is both inanimate and deeply judgmental. A man was absolutely 100% convinced that his neighbor's garden gnome was spying on him. "It moves at night, I swear it," he insisted to the police. "Its eyes follow me when I take out the trash." Officers were dispatched to investigate the suspicious ceramic figure. They found the gnome exactly where the neighbor said it always was, cemented to a small patch of concrete. When they reported this back to the caller, he wasn't satisfied. With a knowing sigh, he just said, "Yeah, well, they're crafty like that." And there they are. 49 dispatches from the absolute edge of reason. Now, let's be honest with each other. You've had a moment. That one time you were this close to calling about a spider that looked too smart or a noise your brain couldn't place. So, confess. What's the most ridiculous thing you almost called the cops for? The comment section is now your confessional. Unburden your soul, and while you're at it, hit like and subscribe for more group therapy.